Welcome to episode 2 of UNIMA Talks Trinidad and Tobago. Today, we have a special guest called Mr. Kurt Hunter. Who is Kurt Hunter? Well, Kurt Hunter is a Minneapolis-based puppeteer best known for his innovative solo marionette work. He has worked as a performer, designer, builder, teacher, director for the In Heart of the Beast Puppet and Mask Theater, Open Eye Figure Theater, Z Puppets, Rosenschnoz, I hope I pronounced that right, and the O'Neill National Puppetry Conference. He has studied with marionette masters Phillip, Huber, and Albrecht Roser, is it? In 2008, he received an UNIMA-USA Citation of Excellence in Puppetry for Sock Puppet Serenade. In 2018, he was awarded a grant from the Jim Henson Foundation for the development of Penguin in My Pocket. And we're happy to have Mr. Kurt Hunter with us. Hey, Kurt. I can't hear you, Kurt. I can't hear you. Oh, there you are. Yeah, it's better now. It's better.
Okay, good. I switched microphones.
Oh, welcome. It's nice to speak to you again. I probably spoke to you shortly at the O'Neill last year.
Yeah, spent a little
Yeah.
bit of time
Yeah.
last year. Yeah.
Well, what we want to do today is you are going to take us through your journey as a puppeteer. My mission is to actually get all these stories so that I can tell it to my people here in Trinidad, show them that
Ah,
puppetry is something worthwhile, it's something worth doing, and expose them to artists like you. There's some
fabulous.
yeah. So let's get from the start. I have a couple questions that I'm gonna ask. You sent a couple interesting photos, so I'm gonna start off from the top.
Okay.
When did you know you wanted to be a puppeteer? What was that moment?
Well, the inspirational moment. My family was on a vacation to California
Hmm.
in, yes, 1975, I guess it was,
Hmm.
and we saw a performance by Tony Urbano's Marionette Company at
Hmm.
the Laguna Beach Festival of the Arts,
Hmm.
and it was appropriate for all ages, but it was geared for adults as much as for kids.
Hmm.
And so it was really beautiful, sophisticated marionettes. Some hand puppet, some rod puppet things as well, but primarily marionettes. Um, for instance, there was a Bob Hope caricature marionette, and Bob Hope had recorded the voice for it. I mean, this was higher end
Yeah.
stuff, and and that was really inspired me. And I was had a mechanical bent and kind of a little bit of an artistic bent. And so when I came home, I decided to try to build some marionettes. Got some books from interlibrary loan because I grew up in Nebraska, so it was pretty isolated. So there weren't other puppeteers around. But from library books and trial and error, I kept at it with marionettes, and that was the starting point.
And that was at what age?
So I was like 12.
Oh, that's a pretty young age. I think for most of us, it's around that age we really start experimenting with it. I myself started trying to build marionettes and stuff at that age, probably. I had no idea how to build them, but hey, same thing. We're just
Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
a common starting point. You have
yeah,
no idea, but you try.
yeah. And again, it's basically a lot like us, well, here in Trinidad because it's really isolated. There's not much going on, so the most you have is the library. And then when the internet came along, well, there was the internet. Yeah.
Right. That huge game changer there
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
internet.
Okay. So after that, and after, that initial learning and stuff, how did it carry on? Like, did you go to school and say, hey, I want to be a puppeteer. I'm gonna go to UConn. I'm gonna do this, or, there's a lot of whatever avenues that there are.
Right.
Mhm.
So a few years after that, um, and at this point, I'd not really hadn't met other puppeteers. I was really just, in
Mhm.
my little tiny town of 1,000 people in Nebraska,
Mhm.
doing my own thing and taking my shows off to Boy Scout troops or,
Mhm.
whatever. I was looking for something. The World Puppetry Festival happened in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And so that was an UNIMA Congress, the only time that an UNIMA Congress has been in the US, and a huge, huge international festival. And so I was still in high school, but it sounded like it was just too good to pass up. And I saved up my money. I think my parents paid for the plane ticket and I paid for the festival registration.
Mhm.
And I got myself out there and was just blown away with what puppetry could be. I mean,
Mhm.
it was just an incredible, incredible experience. Saw lots of US marionette performers as well as international performing using lots of different forms of puppetry. Um, Met some puppeteers from kind of close to where I was in, hours away, but still close
Mhm.
enough that it was possible to get together. And it was actually at that festival that a puppetry guild called the Prairie Guild of Puppetry, which covered two states in the US, Nebraska and Iowa. So it was a huge region,
Mhm.
huge area for a puppet guild. But that guild formed at that festival. So then for the next several years, I was able to go to puppetry guild meetings and meet other puppeteers. It might be a 3 or 4 hour drive to get to a guild meeting, and you'd spend the whole day. But it was a great way to learn more, and then from there, never had any official training in a as a well. That's not. I didn't go to school for puppetry, but I've had a lot of master classes and workshops and sought out those opportunities whenever I could. So yeah, and I went to school for engineering actually,
Mhm.
and while I was in Washington and at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, I had the opportunity to perform with Bob Kramer and
Mhm.
Doug Felch at Bob Kramer's Marionettes. Um, and so that was an absolutely incredible experience to be working with a professional company. We performed with the St. Louis Symphony and we did a television special while I was there for those couple of years. Um, Tragically, their theater burned down in January
I
of
saw
this
that.
year, and Bob was killed in the fire.
Wow.
So yeah, huge, huge tragedy.
Mhm.
The theater, his life work, hundreds and hundreds of marionettes. But the experience, was absolutely transformative for
Mhm.
me. And
Mhm.
I've got such vivid memories of every corner of that theater and workshop. So that was a huge experience for me to get to work with a professional company of that
Mhm.
quality. And then after that, master classes with Albrecht Phillip Huber, time at the O'Neill with other artists, not necessarily with marionettes, but any opportunity you have in performing arts, is well worth exploring because it all adds up.
Mhm. Uh, Speaking about the O'Neill, would you be doing your class this year?
Yes, I'll be leading the
Okay.
marionette construction again
Okay.
this year.
Okay. I
So I'm gearing
honestly,
up for that right now.
oh yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time because I know this could be a really busy week.
yeah,
Yeah.
I head out yeah, next week. Next
Okay.
week I head to Connecticut.
Okay. Okay. Speaking of, I spoke to Joe DeTulio this morning and he told me to let you know that he wanted to say hi and that he loves you and he'll see you next week.
Oh, that's great. I love Joe.
Yeah, Joe's
Yeah,
been great. Joe and I met last year, and that was it. We hit it off, and I feel like, we've known each other our whole lives, and that's puppets for you. I guess they bring
yeah.
people from, yeah.
And that's also the kind of Joe guy that Joe is.
Yes, he is. He's the greatest. He's the
Yeah,
greatest guy
yeah,
ever. Yeah, yeah. So,
yeah. He
mhm,
suffered under the first time that I led anything at the O'Neill.
that's
Yeah, the year that he took the marionette construction strand,
mhm,
Jim Rose wasn't able to be there kind of at the last
mhm,
minute. So
mhm,
Ulysses Jones and I
mhm.
jumped in to teach that workshop, and Joe was one of the folks that took it that year.
Hmm. Speaking of Jim, I only experienced anything about Jim my first year of the O'Neill, which was online. That's in 2021. I think Joe had just passed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Jim was able to be with us
Yeah,
online
yeah,
for the
yeah,
O'Neill in 20, and
yeah,
he had just passed
yeah, in
earlier in the
21.
year in
Yeah,
21.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. But discovering who he was and then Rufus and Margot Rose and everything about the O'Neill that year was something mind-blowing for me. But back to it, give me some Jim stories. Tell me some.
Well, I'll jump even farther back than that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the the first marionette manipulation
Mm-hmm,
training that I ever got
mm-hmm.
was actually from Margot Rose.
Oh,
When I was, I guess, in my maybe first or second, no, it was okay. It was the day of my senior prom in high school.
oh.
There
Mm-hmm,
was we had a day of puppetry, the Prairie
mm-hmm,
Guild of Puppetry that I was talking about.
mm-hmm,
Had a day long event in Ames, Iowa. So I
mm-hmm,
had to get up at, I don't know, 4 or 5 in the morning or something and drive for 4 hours to get over there.
mm-hmm,
But um, Margot Rose was one of the kind of guests of honor
mm-hmm,
at that day of puppetry. And she taught a couple of marionette manipulation workshops. And she
mm-hmm,
had brought, their Rufus and her
mm-hmm,
marionettes that they had created with her for the manipulation workshop.
mm-hmm.
And it was just incredible. I mean, they were the Cadillacs of the marionette world. I mean,
Yeah.
they moved so beautifully. They're so well balanced. You could do things that you couldn't begin to force a mediocre marionette to do. So that was hugely exciting.
Mm-hmm,
And then I've had opportunities to learn from both Margot and Jim through the
mm-hmm,
years.
mm-hmm,
Um, but not so much directly from Jim. I would see what he was doing and picked
mm-hmm,
up things. He'd perform with Pepito at a festival if there
mm-hmm,
was a outside event for the public, and
mm-hmm,
people were always mesmerized by his Pepito, his little clown marionette.
mm-hmm,
And there were lots of things that I love to this day. There are little technical tips that I picked up watching Jim work through the years. Ways he strung marionettes and
mm-hmm,
various little things that are kind of very nitty gritty into the weeds
mm-hmm,
marionette sorts of things. But he was also just the most gracious man
mm-hmm.
that you could ever hope to spend any time with. Just so caring and so thoughtful. Yeah, I'm just a gem.
Yeah, I've only heard good things. I've like I fall down the rabbit hole of things like that, and you look for like old footage on YouTube and stuff, and he was amazing. Like their work was amazing. Like I can't think of how do you manipulate things that way? Like it's a marionette. How did they do this? And it's pretty awesome. Like the most I ever did was make like this pretty rudimentary ostrich marionette when I was a kid. Probably still lying around the house somewhere. And and that in itself was just a moving neck and moving feet.
Oh.
And I was like it was difficult for me to get that down, and that wasn't even like proper like the crazy controllers that they would have. Um
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So you said that you studied engineering and then went on and never really did anything outside of that puppetry exercise like master classes and stuff, which is something really cool to me in that I've done everything outside of being a puppeteer school
Mm.
wise. I did study engineering in school and then decided
Oh.
not decided not to anymore because
Uh-huh.
I was
Yeah.
like, hey, this is not what I want to do. And from there, just kept at puppet stuff over the years. And it's something that I really, I really admire doing. I like doing it. It brings joy to me. And that's where this series comes from. Currently, I'm the representative for UNIMA for Trinidad.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do is create that community and bring that kind of, that love for puppetry forward. So far, so good. I've done a couple workshops. It's, hand and rod style stuff just to capture the audience, but there's a lot of
Yep.
people who've come forward and be like, hey, we'd like to learn about marionettes. We'd like to, learn about this and the other. And I forward them to your Facebook page or to your website and stuff. It's like, this is who I know who does this.
Mm-hmm.
And
That,
yeah,
yes.
and it's just to see that people they want to learn. But what's happening now is that they're asking like, hey, can you do it? I can do it. But I said like, I know people who can. So, maybe someday in the future, you'd be here doing something like that.
Ah.
The hot Caribbean sun.
There we go. I'd love
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So you sent me some pictures. I want to see if I can share them and we can talk
Okay.
about them. So let's see if I screen share this. Ta-da. Okay, so we're there.
We have. Okay. I love that
Okay,
shot.
right. So give me some context in this shot.
Yeah, yeah. This definitely needs some context.
Yeah.
So this is from Penguin in My Pocket.
Uh-huh.
which is a show I created just a few years ago, 5, 6 years ago. Um, so this is from a little audience participation segment that's in the middle of the show. The
Mm-hmm.
show is essentially a marionette show.
Mm-hmm.
So the it's the story of a penguin scientist whose jetpack malfunctions and she gets stuck in the jungle. And she works with the artistic monkey and a few other characters to find her way home. And so the artist participation scene that we've got here, I bring 5 people up on stage um, to be the ocean, which is this big piece of fabric. And then it takes 3 people to operate this sea monster puppet, which is the big red character
Mm-hmm.
you see in the middle. He inflates very simply just by me pulling air
Mm-hmm.
into the figure. And then it's one adult on the body and a kid on each arm. And I take them through some little puppetry exercises to see what the sea monster can do. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really kind of an introduction to puppetry
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the show with some audience participation folks. And I especially love this picture because you can see how delighted these kids are to
Mm-hmm.
get to be a part of the show. So at this point, I'm using very simple flat rod puppets of the 2 main characters,
Mm-hmm.
Marty the monkey and Ava the penguin,
Uh-huh.
as they encounter the sea monster. But their marionette versions of those 2 characters are the primary characters throughout the show.
Oh, oh,
And just to give a little more about the show, you can see
mm.
that I'm kind of in this crazy costume.
Uh-huh.
The show starts with just a trunk on stage, an empty trunk,
Mm-hmm.
and all of the puppets and all of the stage are within the coat that I'm wearing.
Oh,
So I've got this very, very silly introduction where I actually assemble the whole stage and pull out all the marionettes out of this enormous coat. And there's a lot of audience interaction in that part. And there's a song that I teach people that they sing throughout the show. And so it's very, very involving of the audience, this whole show. And we were just in Atlanta at the Center for Puppetry Arts in March.
mm-hmm.
We were there for 3 weeks performing this show. And so that was 33 performances. So it was a huge good time down in Atlanta in March with the fabulous audiences that they've got down there for this show.
I guess that would be like the mecca for puppets in the US because I've only
It
heard good
really
things.
is.
Yeah, I really need to visit sometime. My next trip to the US, I need to get out there.
Yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, I've been to the center through the years, but they've just so upped their game. The World of Puppetry Museum is an international collection with lots of video and hands-on interactive stuff that really does a fabulous job of, it's not a huge collection, but it really highlights, every corner of the
Yeah.
world
Mm-hmm.
where puppetry is happening. And then they've got the Henson wing,
Mm-hmm.
which is devoted to Jim Henson's work and the Muppets and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. They've got a research library. They've got two theaters. They've got a big education program, a lot of online education stuff going on. Yeah, it's grown, but absolutely, it's the biggest thing in the U.S. and
Yeah.
it is Mecca.
Yeah, it seems that way. And like I hope that someday I could create a space like that here. I've been working with a lot of creative arts centers down here to just try to get some kind of, work going on. And I think things like that shows basically some kind of lineage, some kind of heritage, some kind of history of puppets kind
Yeah,
of really stirs the emotions of people and getting them involved in it. Um
yeah.
yeah. Um, Funny story about the Center for Puppetry Arts. Last year, they had a big deal about the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer puppets, right?
Mm-hmm.
From that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
that Rankin Bass stuff animation. That was pretty awesome to hear the story that they were just found in a lady's house.
Right.
Yeah, and it was just
Yeah,
random.
and they've got their huge, their marvelous production of Rudolph
Yes,
the
yes, they
Red-Nosed
they, they
they
do.
do
Yeah,
at the center, so that's a very direct tie-in.
yeah. I think Sarah Beth was part of that show last year, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
yeah,
so.
yeah. She was there. Yeah, yeah. That seems like a pretty awesome show too. It looks really
Yeah,
intense though. Those puppets are huge.
those
Yeah,
are large
yeah,
rod puppets for
yeah,
that production.
yeah. So let's go again and see what we have on the pictures here. This one is my favorite picture of all. Let me share this one. That's not the picture. Come on. That's the
Give
wrong
it a
guy.
second. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. The one I'm talking about is, let's try again. Stop sharing this one and let's start sharing. the other one. Hmm, that's weird. It says sharing as paused.
Oh,
Resume sharing. The technology always gets the better of us sometimes.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it was the one with
After
the
all of
toy.
this, it
Yeah.
still does.
Yeah. The one with the Toy Story stuff is what I'm talking about.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that was yeah, yeah. So that was a commercial that I did 2 or 3 years ago now. Um, because I think it probably happened because Target Corporation is headquartered in Minneapolis,
Mm-hmm.
where I am.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea was that Target was introducing these new toys, kind of high-end figures from Toy Story
Mm-hmm.
when Toy Story 4 came out.
Uh-huh.
And the idea for the commercial was essentially that the toys are kind of sneaking into a Target, sneaking around a Target, sneaking into a Target to try to find these other toys.
Mm-hmm.
And because they didn't want to use CGI,
Mm-hmm.
computer graphics, because the movie is computer graphics. So
Yeah.
they wanted physically to use the toys as the characters in the commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So another puppeteer locally, Gordon Smuter, was originally contacted to see if puppetry could be used in this commercial, and he thought marionettes might be a way that would help for some of the effects at least. And
Mm-hmm.
so he pulled me in. So what we ended up doing was rigging the toys to work as marionettes. So some fancy stringing.
Mm-hmm.
For the Buzz Lightyear toy, it's a rigid, you
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So Gordon had to kind of get in there, change the jointing so that it wasn't a ratchet kind of
Yeah.
thing. It had, and then I dug out my old VHS tape of Toy Story 2 when the horse Bullseye was introduced to kind of
Yeah.
figure out how it moved. And so I did a lot of stringing experiments to get the characters to move like the actual CGI characters. And then yeah, so for one scene, Gordon and I, it was a group scene that had included Buzz and Jesse and a couple of the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we did that together, and then there was a scene where all of the characters were kind of sneaking through the front door at Target
Mm-hmm.
together, and so that was Woody and Bullseye the horse and Bo Peep, and so I was operating each of those
Okay.
individually,
Mm-hmm.
and then they composited it all together.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was 3 or 4 scenes with the marionettes, but it was a really fun challenge to get the characters to move the way but in the final commercial came out
Mm-hmm.
just beautifully, and it's kind of amazing that it's all live. None of that was CGI.
I'm gonna have to look for that commercial though. I wonder if I can find it if it exists on YouTube.
There's a link on my website for the
Oh,
for the video. Yeah,
okay. I'll look at it. I'll look at it. I have to look at that because I had no idea that it's just the actual toys you strung. I thought you guys made those. So I was like, wow, those are really accurate though.
yeah. I mean, it was specifically to highlight because we were actually working with the toys that they were,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
selling, that the commercial is promoting.
Right, right. Did Disney give a nod at that? Like, hey, that was good.
Well, I mean, it was interesting because, at the actual shoot, it was the production company as well as the Target representatives as well as the Disney
Uh-huh.
representatives to make sure that everything is up to their
Oh
you
yeah.
know
Mm.
that you're not crossing any lines or something. I don't know. They were making sure it was done right.
Uh-huh. I guess it would be done right because I've seen your work. It's amazing. So I'm excited to look at that though. Yeah.
I mean, it's a short commercial. It
Yeah.
flies by pretty fast, but I'm pretty proud of that work.
As a puppeteer, you might think it's a short time, but we know what 30 seconds in puppet performance could feel like. Yeah. So
Yeah, that's right.
I'm sure it's not it's like if I look at it now, you'll see it, you'll know it. It's just like Jim keeps telling us about the commercials he did with that teddy bear for I think it was fabric softener. What's the name of that fabric softener?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Snuggles, the
Snuggles.
Snuggles there.
Yeah, it Snuggles the bear, right? Like it's a puppet, but you don't think about what goes into that puppet. You never think about
Yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah. And it's such a smooth working, moving puppet, so you don't even see it. You don't even notice.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Makes it look easy, and that's the
yeah, yeah.
goal.
Yeah, it's not easy. I think I'm sure it's not easy. I'm sure it's not easy. So let's see if we could share and let's try to share another photo because I think we should. I was gonna ask you, um, I in this well, it's the same costume, but there's a picture. This costume is supposed to be a conductor, right? You're like a conductor for a train.
I mean, it's sort of a nondescript, non-specific.
Oh, it's nondescript,
I mean,
non-specific.
it definitely has. It definitely has that sort of a look to it. I worked with a friend who's a costume designer, and he designed
Hmm.
and built my
Oh.
costume for that show. My wife did the puppetry costuming.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's meant to be a sort of out of time. It's clearly not a today
Yeah.
costume.
Hmm.
You're going to a different place in time, and that's sort of what the costume is doing for us
Hmm.
there. Because the other thing about it is that I
Hmm.
enter in that costume playing the concertina.
Okay.
So when I teach the people the song, I'm doing that on the concertina. So the show opens and closes with the concertina music. And
Hmm.
other than that, the whole show is then just me doing voices and sound effects with live voice,
Hmm.
which was a well, it was a completely new thing for me because most of what I do is marionette stuff that's choreographed to pre-recorded music. So
Hmm.
doing the character voices and a whole story show was a departure for me. But
So
it's been great. It's been
you said you do the character voices, you perform the characters, and you do the sound effects too.
yeah. So there is nothing pre-recorded. That was just a little challenge that I set up for myself that I wanted to do that show completely old school with
Hmm.
with just strictly with the human voice.
Yeah.
And talking about training and stuff, one thing
Hmm.
that I have, I guess, a little more formally done, and this is only within the last 10 years,
Uh-huh.
I've taken a lot of improv classes in Minneapolis. There's a
Hmm.
really strong improvisational theater scene here. And without taking those classes, I never would have been able to take this show on. It freed me up as a performer in some pretty amazing ways. So I give them I give the folks at Huge Improv Theater a lot of credit for really freeing me up as a performer.
I think in every aspect of performance, in live performance, improv is a hell of a thing. Like just
Absolutely.
yeah, because I think if not being exposed to the only improv I've ever been exposed to is Puppet Up. And
Huh.
on
Mhm.
yeah, and that's crazy improv. That's crazy puppet improv. And that's I mean, I could improv a little, but that has kind of opened the door for like random things. And even when I'm doing little workshops now, I do a segment of improv. Like I give them puppets as like, hey, this is the scene, act it out. And I think
Yeah.
it helps. It helps finding your voice and stuff. And my wife and I, she's not here right now. She's at work, but she and I we do a show called the Rollover Rover Show. It's a birthday party kind of situation. It's live,
Uh-huh.
but we do some shadow puppets, we do some hand and rod style stuff, and the same thing. I try to do everything live, give all the sound effects live and stuff. And I understand that that's a hell of a challenge. I mean, for some things we use some pre-recorded content, but other than that, like the regular, puppet to kid stuff, you do. It's kind of fun to do your own
Oh
sound
yeah.
effects. Yeah, yeah. I think it
And
would.
having it immediate
Yeah,
where they know it's happening on the spot, it's
yeah,
you get a different kind of connection.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah, and oh, I was just
no,
going to
you
say that
you go
thinking
ahead.
back,
Hmm.
the the original spark for taking improv training was a couple of short workshops that Leslie Clara Rudolph and Tyler Bunch taught at the O'Neill.
Hmm.
Just little, it's an hour here, an hour there kind of
Hmm.
workshops, but it's like, oh, I really need to pick up some improv. I really need to add that to the tool belt to, round things out a little bit more. And, I wish I'd done it a decade sooner, but
What you gonna do? I don't think that
yeah,
there's a timeline on things like this. You can always learn. You always keep learning. Yeah.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
talking about Tyler and Leslie, Tyler actually he hosted my virtual puppet slam and mentorship last year, Puppets of Irie. Tyler was super awesome at that. And he's good at those things, that
Well, he's brilliant
yeah,
as an
yeah,
MC.
he's
Yeah.
the most awesome MC ever. I I'm so sad that last year at the O'Neill, when we were finished doing Howdy Do, Leslie Rudolph came behind the scenes That was her, and it was Marty Robinson, and they came behind the scenes just, just to say hi. And I'm so upset that I didn't get to actually meet her because she's awesome. Like her improv is crazy good. She does like a really
Oh
cool
yeah,
live show. I've looked at that show well, I've only seen that on YouTube, but it's crazy. Like his stuff is insane.
yeah, and yeah, she's brilliant, and she's the kindest person you're going to run into.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's the best.
she is. And like if you like go down the rabbit hole, I've heard us like I heard her tell a story about like her first interview or audition with Henson. Like she didn't know anything puppets or anything, but she had this really weird thing she did with she would do the whole movie basically
Oh, the Wizard of Oz
yeah,
thing.
the Wizard of Oz thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And when she was done, Brian Henson stopped and he was like, tell me something. Why are you like this?
yeah.
And I think it's awesome because like she does it so well, and I can't like I can't even think about like how do you go about doing something like that, and that's just the glory of like actors and puppetry and improv and how it all rolls in together into this crazy thing that
Yeah.
we do. Yeah, I think I've figured out the share screen thing. Let's see what I get again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's go for this one. Share. Ah, there you go. And this
Oh,
is the
is
picture we were talking about before.
okay. It's not showing up for me.
Oh, but this was the picture of the Toy Story stuff. Let's see what I get again. That's not the one I wanted to share actually. Share and share alike. Da, 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 da. I may need to. I think I may need to. I may need to share, edit these into the video. Maybe stop share.
Yeah, yeah, just
Yeah,
yeah, however
I'll
that
do
goes.
that. Yeah, but there's a picture there. I saw it with the marionettes, the main characters from the Penguin show
Ah,
that you said
yeah,
earlier.
I know the shot you mean.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's another one with an ostrich puppet. Tell me
Oh,
about
oh,
that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, the ostrich.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the sort of more standard marionette vignettes that I do.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's Orville the ostrich. It's a very large marionette. It's
Okay.
oh gosh, close to 3 feet tall. Two
Okay.
feet is more standard, but yeah, Orville is 30 inches, 36 inches, somewhere in there. But it was inspired by a piece of music um, by Prokofiev's Summer Day Suite.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a chamber music group, the Twin Cities Chamber Symphony,
Mm-hmm.
and um, Moon Over the, I can't remember the name of the movement anyway, but it's a little vignette about an ostrich that's trying that he comes on stage, he hears birds flittering about, looks up longingly, attempts to fly, fails, blows up a balloon, and some other stuff goes on. And it's a very sweet little number that I actually close most of my variety marionette shows with.
Can
So
we
that's one
find
of the more,
it?
it's got moving eyes, moving mouth, blows up the balloon. It's got some other mechanical tricks involved with kind of a surprise finish at the number. He's got these huge shoes, and at the end when he's trying to get off the ground, the balloon is inflated. He's trying to his feet slide out of these huge shoes, and that's how he's able to float off. We always got to leave some baggage behind if you're going to fly.
Yeah. I'd really like to see that show. It sounds interesting. It sounds really awesome. I would never think that marionettes could get that complex. Like you described so many things that one marionette is doing, and it's amazing. I need to see it. Do you have anything like that like online like that you can see? Like
I'm trying to think if I've got there. I mean, there's a fair number. I've got a fair number of things on YouTube.
hmm
Some experimental stuff and some of my more traditional stuff. Orville's a little more traditional,
hmm
and I can't remember if I've got his number up on YouTube or not. I
hmm
should.
You said it's around 3 feet tall,
Close to. I
close
mean,
to three
long
feet
skinny
tall,
neck.
right?
Yeah.
And then and you're probably almost my height, right? You're like 6 feet somewhere around there,
Oh,
maybe.
I'm not quite that tall.
Yeah,
I'm more
okay.
like 5'8", but
Oh,
yeah.
oh. maybe. So
But still, it
how do
makes
you
for a big.
how do you do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, and he's also, because he's a larger marionette. I mean,
Yeah.
he's relatively lightweight materials,
Hmm.
but yeah, when he's flying,
Yeah.
his head is probably somewhere chest high on me, and the control is
Hmm.
above my head.
Yeah, because I think even like regular, like if you're doing that standing up, because I'm guessing you're standing up, or do
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do it
So
like
yeah,
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
performing cabaret style on the same
oh,
level as the puppets.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Because I was wondering, like that's a big puppet. Do you like go for like overhead and do it from above or no?
No,
Oh,
no, he's strung a little bit higher, so I'm holding the control.
right.
Normally, I would be holding the control more at elbow level.
Yeah,
So I do have to have that control a little bit higher than is normally comfortable for a marionette.
yeah. You have really strong shoulders than doing that all the time.
Yeah, that's the other thing about Penguin in My Pocket.
Uh-huh.
I've just because of how the stage is built and
Hmm.
is all operated at this level, but they're very, very lightweight marionettes.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so it's workable for that.
I I think I need to take your marionette class sometime. I think I need to do it.
I would love it if you could. Yeah.
I
I mean,
should.
that's my mission has been. I've been excited about marionettes for so long, and so my mission has been, trying to make it accessible for
Hmm.
other people, because just getting a workable marionette, is kind of the hurdle you have to get over
Hmm.
to start doing anything with marionettes.
In 2021, I actually thought about doing it, but then Jean Marie was like, "You're in Trinidad. How is that gonna work out? Like to get the because I know you built kits and send it off to everyone,
Yeah, for 20 and
right?
21, we mailed
Yeah,
out kits.
because she's like,
Yeah,
it's
which
probably gonna cost a lot to get to you, and like, yeah, maybe it would.
yeah.
Yeah, getting it here might be a deal, but I think getting in person is better for me. I have to get over my fear of of the workshop. I'm terrified of that workshop in the O'Neill.
I mean, 50% of what I
Yeah.
do in teaching marionette workshops is
Hmm.
just to get over
Yeah.
that, that fear of strings that so many people have.
Strings don't bother me, you know. Power tools bother me.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Bandsaws, I could just see my fingers getting cut off.
Well, as saws go, the
Yeah.
bandsaw is actually
Uh,
one of the safer.
really?
Beware the table saw. The
Oh, okay.
bandsaw,
Hmm.
it will only do so much to you.
I only do so
I'll
much.
tell
Yeah.
you.
Like
It, it,
you may not lose a finger, but
it's
you could
easy to
get
be
it.
careful with a
Yeah.
bandsaw.
Oh,
I'll say that.
yeah. Hmm.
As soon as I got my first apartment to myself,
Uh-huh.
I got a bandsaw. Half of the one bedroom apartment was a tiny little shop, and I had my tiny little bandsaw.
Hmm.
I need my bandsaw.
Yeah, I think with all puppet building, you need a bandsaw. I need a really good drill press. Yeah, for any
Yeah.
kind of puppet building. Yeah. So I think before we lose this meeting, I see we have like 2 minutes again.
Oh, yep,
We
yep.
should work into the other one. I'm using free Zoom because I'm poor. I'll edit
Yeah,
this out.
that's
Don't
fair.
worry about it. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll join on the next one and we'll go for the second half.
Very good.
All
I'll see
right.
you over
Yeah.
there.
All right. Mhm. Due to some technical difficulties, meaning I didn't press record, we didn't get the second half of this show with Kurt Hunter. We just want to say thank you, Kurt, for being on our show. We had a lot of fun and we hope that we could get you back on the show sometime to do the second half and hear more puppet stories. If you'd like to learn more about Kurt Hunter and his work, you can visit www.kurthuntermarionettes.com. And if you'd like to learn more about puppets locally, you can follow UNIMA Trinidad and Tobago and Estracal Productions.